My brother stole our family business. While parents were on cruise, I got revenge. I never thought my own brother would try to steal everything my parents built from nothing. But here I am, staring at eviction papers with my family's name crossed out and Tyler's signature at the bottom like he owns the place. Let me back up. 3 years ago, I was supposed to be finishing my marketing degree at State, living in a decent apartment, maybe dating someone who didn't smell like onions and cilantro 24/7. Instead, I'm 29 years old, sleeping on a futon in my parents' converted garage, and my hands are permanently stained from prepping carnitas at 4 in the morning because our family's 2 food trucks were about to go under. My parents, Maria and Carlos, came here from Guadalajara 30 years ago with 2 suitcases and a dream. They worked construction and cleaning houses for 15 years, saving every penny until they could buy their first beat-up truck and turn it into Abuela's kitchen. The name came from my dad's grandmother's recipes. These incredible traditional Mexican dishes that made grown men cry happy tears. By the time I was in high school, they had expanded to 2 trucks, hired my younger sister Sophia and 2 family friends, and were pulling in about $180,000 a year. Not rich by any means, but enough to send all 3 of us kids to college and maintain the commissary kitchen they rented for 12 years from this old guy named Pete, who loved my mom's tamales so much he never raised the rent. But then the pandemic hit and everything changed. Food trucks were struggling everywhere. My parents, who barely speak English and have never touched a computer, had no idea how to pivot to delivery apps or social media marketing. I watched them stress about every bill, saw my dad's hair go completely gray in 6 months, so I made a choice. I dropped out with 1 semester left, moved into the garage, and threw myself into saving the business. 60-hour weeks, learning inventory management, figuring out Instagram, negotiating with suppliers. I dumped my entire savings, $23,000, into new equipment and inventory because I believed we could turn it around. And we did. Slowly but surely, business picked up. We got featured in the local paper, built up a loyal following, started catering private events. My parents were so grateful they kept talking about making me a partner once things stabilized. That's when Tyler decided to get involved. My older brother has always been the golden child. MBA from a good school, works in corporate finance downtown, drives a BMW, lives in a fancy condo. He's the one my parents brag about at church, the successful son who wears suits and knows about stocks and retirement planning. For years, Tyler showed zero interest in the family business. He'd stop by maybe twice a year, eat some free food, and make comments about how we should modernize or expand or whatever. But he never offered to actually help, never got his hands dirty. Then 6 months ago, everything changed. Tyler started showing up more often, always with his new girlfriend Madison. She's this food blogger influencer type with perfect makeup and a ring light permanently attached to her phone. The first time I met her, she spent 10 minutes photographing her taco from every angle before taking a tiny bite and declaring it almost authentic. Tyler began having these long conversations with our parents about business strategy and financial planning. He'd speak to them in this condescending tone, like they were children who needed guidance. "Papa, you need to think bigger. This business has so much potential if we just professionalize it." My parents, who respect education and success, started listening to him. When Tyler suggested they make him the official business manager, they agreed immediately. "He understands money," my mom told me. "He can help us grow." I should have seen the warning signs. Tyler started asking detailed questions about our suppliers, our customer base, our profit margins. He had my parents sign a bunch of paperwork, claiming it was for better organization and tax purposes. When I asked to see what they were signing, he brushed me off. "Don't worry about it, little brother. This is grown-up business stuff. You just focus on the cooking, little brother." Like I hadn't been the one keeping this place alive for 3 years while he was playing with spreadsheets downtown. Madison started coming around more too, always with that damn phone. She'd film herself eating our food while making these fake surprised faces, then post videos with captions like "found this hidden gem, but imagine what it could become with the right vision." She kept suggesting we needed to update our menu, move away from traditional Mexican food toward fusion cuisine. "People want innovation," she'd say, waving her manicured hands around. "Korean-Mexican fusion is so hot right now. You could do kimchi quesadillas, bulgogi tacos." I tried to explain that our customers loved us for our authentic recipes, the ones my great-grandmother passed down, but Tyler would jump in and support Madison's ideas. "We need to think about expanding our demographic," he'd say. "Traditional is great, but it limits your market reach." The breaking point came 3 weeks ago. I arrived at the commissary kitchen early as usual to start prep for the lunch rush. Pete, our landlord, was waiting for me in the parking lot with this confused expression on his face. "Hey kid," he said, scratching his gray beard. "I got this weird letter yesterday. Some lawyer saying I need to deal with a Tyler Ramirez about the lease renewal. What happened to your parents?" My blood went cold. "What do you mean?" Pete handed me a formal-looking document. It was from a law firm I'd never heard of. stating that Tyler Ramirez was now the sole proprietor of Abuela's Kitchen LLC and all lease negotiations should go through him directly. I stared at that paper like it was written in a foreign language. Pete, there must be some mistake. My parents own this business. That's what I thought too, Pete said. But this lawyer seems pretty official. He even included incorporation documents showing Tyler as the owner. Says the business was transferred to him last month. While I was working my ass off managing both trucks, Tyler had somehow gotten control of our entire operation. I drove straight to Tyler's office downtown, that fancy glass building where he works as some kind of financial analyst. The receptionist made me wait in the lobby for 45 minutes, like I was some random person trying to sell him insurance. When Tyler finally came down, he was wearing this smug expression that made me want to punch him. Hey brother, what brings you to the big city? What the hell did you do with our business? Tyler looked around at the marble floors and suited people walking by, clearly embarrassed by my work clothes and raised voice. Let's take this outside. On the sidewalk, Tyler put on this fake concerned face. Look, I know this seems sudden, but Mom and Dad asked me to help protect the business. There were some liability issues, tax complications. It was easier to restructure everything under my name temporarily. Temporarily? Of course. This is just for legal protection. You know how these government regulations work. It's complicated stuff that you wouldn't understand. That phrase, you wouldn't understand, hit me like a slap. 3 years of 60-hour weeks, 3 years of building relationships with customers and suppliers, 3 years of learning every aspect of this business. And my own brother thought I was too stupid to understand basic incorporation. I want to see the paperwork, I said. Tyler's expression shifted slightly. It's all filed with lawyers and accountants. Look, nothing changes day to day. You keep doing what you're doing, I handle the business side. Division of labor. And Mom and Dad agreed to this. They trust me to make the right decisions for the family. I left that conversation feeling sick to my stomach, but I told myself Tyler was probably telling the truth. Maybe there were tax advantages I didn't understand. Maybe this was normal business practice. 2 weeks later, I got my answer. I was at the commissary kitchen, cleaning up after a particularly busy catering job, when a guy in a cheap suit knocked on the door. He handed me an envelope with my name on it and walked away without saying a word. Inside was a formal eviction notice. 45 days to vacate the premises. The letter explained that the new owner of Abuela's Kitchen LLC had decided not to renew the lease and had already secured alternative commercial kitchen space. I read that notice 3 times before it sank in. Tyler wasn't protecting the business, he was stealing it. And he was kicking us out of the space that had been our home base for 12 years. My parents were on their dream cruise, celebrating 30 years of marriage in the Caribbean. They'd saved for this trip for 5 years, and I couldn't bring myself to call them and ruin everything with this bombshell. So I decided to do some investigating on my own. The next morning, I went to the commissary early and logged into the shared business computer we use for ordering supplies and managing schedules. Tyler had added himself as an administrator to all our accounts, but he hadn't changed any passwords yet. What I found in his email folder made my hands shake. 4 months of correspondence with something called Elevated Street Food Concepts, an investment group that specializes in buying and flipping food truck operations. Tyler had been feeding them detailed information about our customer base, our profit margins, our supplier relationships, everything. The most recent email laid out the plan. Tyler would incorporate the business under his name, sell the brand and recipes to Elevated Street Food for $350,000. Then work as a regional manager, while my parents would be kept on as low-wage prep cooks. The current operators have significant emotional attachment to traditional recipes, Tyler had written, but lack business sophistication. They'll accept employment terms that maximize profitability. My parents, reduced to employees in their own business. The recipes my great-grandmother created, sold to some corporate entity that would probably bastardize them beyond recognition. But the worst part was in Madison's email folder, which Tyler had apparently given her access to for her cookbook project. She'd been systematically photographing and documenting every single recipe, every preparation technique, every supplier relationship. Photos of my mom's handwritten recipe cards, videos of my dad's cooking methods, detailed notes about ingredient sources and cost structures. One email to her literary agent made me want to throw the computer across the room. The authentic Mexican angle is perfect for the current market, Madison had written. Traditional immigrant family recipes with a modern twist. I'm thinking from Abuela's kitchen to yours. Authentic Mexican street food for the modern family. The old couple are so sweet and unsuspecting. They have no idea these recipes could be worth a fortune in the right hands. The old couple. My parents, who had welcomed this woman into their kitchen, who had proudly shared family stories and cooking techniques, who trusted their son's girlfriend because they wanted to believe Tyler had found someone who appreciated their culture. I printed everything. Every email, every document, every piece of evidence of Tyler's betrayal. Then I spent the rest of the day figuring out my next move. My parents were coming back from their cruise in 5 days. I could wait and let them enjoy their vacation, but Tyler would have more time to cover his tracks. Or I could call them right now and ruin their dream trip with the news that their oldest son was trying to steal everything they'd built. I chose option 3. I called my cousin Miguel, who's a paralegal, and asked him to recommend a lawyer who specialized in business fraud and spoke Spanish. Then I gathered every piece of evidence I had and prepared to fight back. The lawyer, Carmen Gonzalez, was exactly what we needed. Bilingual, experienced with family business disputes, and absolutely furious when I showed her Tyler's emails. "This is textbook fraud," she said, reviewing the documents. "Your brother used his position as business manager to steal intellectual property and corporate assets. The fact that he manipulated your parents into signing documents they couldn't read makes it even worse." Carmen filed an emergency injunction to prevent Tyler from selling the business or transferring any assets. She also sent a formal demand letter requiring him to provide all business documents and financial records. Tyler's response came within hours. A nasty email accusing me of being jealous and ungrateful, claiming I was trying to destroy the family over some misunderstanding. "You've always been bitter about my success," he wrote. "Now you're trying to sabotage a legitimate business opportunity because you can't handle not being in charge. Grow up." But the legal papers must have scared him, because he started calling my parents' cruise ship, trying to reach them before they got home. Fortunately, my parents had mentioned they were doing a digital detox. No phones or emails for the whole week. Tyler's panicked messages went straight to voicemail. I spent those 5 days gathering more evidence. Bank records showing Tyler had been skimming money from the business accounts. Transfers to his personal account that he'd labeled as management fees. Contracts with suppliers that he'd renegotiated under worse terms, probably planning to pocket the difference. The night before my parents returned, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how betrayed they would feel, how their trust in their oldest son was about to be shattered. But they needed to know the truth. I picked them up at the airport the next morning, listening to them talk excitedly about their trip while my stomach churned. They looked so happy, so relaxed, so completely unaware that their business had been stolen while they were swimming with dolphins. "Mijo, you look tired," my mom said, studying my face in the rearview mirror. "Have you been eating enough?" "I'm okay, Mom. But we need to talk when we get home. There's been some problems with the business." My dad's expression immediately shifted to worry. "Problems? What kind of problems?" "Let's wait until we're home," I said. "I have everything organized to show you." At the kitchen table where I'd done homework as a kid, I laid out all the evidence. The incorporation documents, the emails with the investment group, Madison's recipe theft, the bank records showing Tyler's skimming. My parents read everything in silence, their faces moving from confusion to shock to heartbreak. My mom started crying when she saw Madison's email calling them the old couple. "I don't understand," my dad said quietly. "Tyler said he was helping us. He said the paperwork was for our protection." "He lied to you, Papa. He's been planning to sell the business and keep you as employees." My mom looked up from the documents, tears streaming down her face. "But why? We would have given him anything he asked for. The business, money, whatever he needed. That's what made Tyler's betrayal so cruel. My parents would have happily made him a partner, would have left him the business in their will, would have supported any legitimate plan he had. Instead, he chose to manipulate and steal from them. The next few hours were a whirlwind of phone calls and legal actions. Carmen helped us revoke Tyler's power of attorney and file for an emergency restraining order, preventing him from making any business decisions. Tyler showed up at the house around dinner time, probably expecting to smooth talk his way out of trouble like he always did. But my parents, who had spent the day processing their son's betrayal, were ready for him. "How could you do this to us?" my mom asked before Tyler could even sit down. "How could you steal from your own family?" Tyler tried his usual charm offensive. "Mama, you don't understand the business world. I was trying to create generational wealth for all of us. These investment guys know what they're doing. By selling our recipes to strangers?" my dad interjected. "By making us employees in our own business?" Tyler's mask slipped a little. "Look, you're not getting any younger. This business needs professional management. I was trying to set up a structure that would take care of everyone." "Take care of everyone?" I couldn't stay quiet anymore. "You were planning to pay the minimum wage while you collected $350,000. That's not—" "Look, the details were still being negotiated." My mom stood up from the table, and I'd never seen her look so angry. "Get out of my house." "Mama, please, let me explain." "You explain nothing. You steal from us, you lie to us, you treat us like we are stupid old people. Get out!" Tyler looked around the table, probably realizing for the first time that his charm wasn't going to save him. "You're making a huge mistake. That investment group is the best thing that could happen to this business." "The business that you stole?" Carmen interjected. She'd been quiet during the family drama, but now her lawyer voice came out. "The business that you incorporated under your name without your parents' knowledge or consent?" Tyler's face went pale. "Who are you?" "I'm the attorney who's going to make sure your parents get their business back and that you face consequences for fraud." Tyler left without another word, but not before shooting me a look that could have melted steel. I'd won this battle, but I knew the war wasn't over. The next few weeks were a legal and emotional roller coaster. Tyler hired his own lawyer and tried to claim that my parents had legitimately transferred the business to him. But Carmen tore his arguments apart with the email evidence. The investment group dropped out once they realized they were dealing with stolen property. Madison disappeared from Tyler's life when it became clear her cookbook deal was dead, and Tyler might face criminal charges. Meanwhile, we had a business to save. The eviction notice was still valid because Tyler had legitimately terminated our lease, and we had 30 days to find a new location. That's when Carmen suggested something that changed everything. "You know," she said during one of our meetings, "your customers might want to know what really happened here. There's something to be said for transparency." So I wrote a post on our Facebook page, explaining the whole situation. How Tyler had stolen the business, how we were fighting to get it back, how we needed to find a new location. The response was incredible. Hundreds of comments from customers expressing outrage and support. People offering to help us find new space, volunteering to spread the word, suggesting we start a crowdfunding campaign to cover moving costs. "This is what happens when you build real relationships with people," my mom said, reading through all the supportive messages. "They don't just buy our food, they care about our family." We launched a GoFundMe with a goal of $25,000 to cover deposits and moving expenses. Within a week, we'd raised $75,000. Customers, fellow food truck owners, local businesses, even some city council members contributed. More importantly, a local developer who'd been following our story offered us space in a new food hall he was building. Better location, modern facilities, same rent we'd been paying Pete for 12 years. Tyler tried one last desperate move, claiming he was entitled to a share of the crowdfunding money since he was still technically the owner of record. But Carmen shut that down immediately, and the judge expedited our case. 6 months later, we're more successful than we've ever been. The new location brings in more foot traffic. Our story attracted media attention that brought new customers, and the whole ordeal taught us valuable lessons about protecting ourselves legally. My parents made me an official partner in the new LLC we created, and I finally understand that my marketing degree wasn't wasted. I just applied it to the family business instead of some corporate job. Tyler ended up pleading guilty to a reduced fraud charge to avoid felony prosecution. He had to pay restitution, lost his job when the scandal made local news, and hasn't spoken to any of us since the court hearing. Sometimes I feel bad about how everything went down. Tyler is still my brother, and part of me wishes we could have worked things out as a family. But then I remember those emails. The calculation behind his betrayal, the way he was willing to reduce our parents to minimum wage employees in their own business. He made his choice. He chose money over family, deception over honesty, personal gain over the people who raised him and loved him unconditionally. The hardest part was watching my parents grieve the loss of their son. Not literally, obviously, but the Tyler they thought they knew, the successful son they were so proud of, that person never really existed. "We raised him the same way we raised you and Sophia," my mom said one day while we were prepping vegetables. "How did he become so different?" I don't have an answer to that question. Maybe success changed Tyler. Maybe he was always selfish and we just didn't see it. Maybe the pressure of being the golden child warped his sense of entitlement. What I do know is that our family is stronger now. Sophia stepped up in ways I never expected, taking on management responsibilities and proving she inherited our parents' work ethic. My parents finally let me handle the marketing and business development, trusting my judgment instead of defaulting to Tyler's supposed expertise. And every day, when I see the line of customers waiting at our trucks, when I watch my parents teach Sophia how to perfect their tamale recipe, when I deposit another successful day's earnings in our family-owned account, I'm reminded that some things are worth fighting for. The food truck business isn't glamorous. I still live in the converted garage, still wake up at 4 in the morning, still smell like carnitas more often than I'd like. But it's ours. Built on honest work and genuine relationships with our community. Tyler can keep his corporate job, his BMW, his empty condo. I'll take my family's trust, our customers' loyalty, and the satisfaction of knowing that when someone tried to steal everything we'd built, we fought back and won. Sometimes the most important battles are the ones fought around kitchen tables. In commissary kitchens, in the spaces where families create something meaningful together. And sometimes, winning isn't about what you gain. It's about protecting what you refuse to lose.